you.
Yeah. But, the story starts on 10 years ago, this coming Friday. I was driving in my car and I hear on the radio that a man had been killed in a public housing building in White Plains. Like a 90-minute battle ensued. The police had to break down the door, and unfortunately, this man was killed. Turns out that he was a 60-year-old retired veteran. He was a corrections officer. And just by the building that he lived in, I knew that another Black man had been killed. Right after that report, they interviewed his son, Kenneth Chamberlain Jr., who said, listen, I don't hate police. I just need to find out what happened. And so we started, the whole community, I mean, it was just so compelling that it was happening right in our community that we started following Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. And this man was everywhere. He said that on the gurney, he promised his father that he would get justice. And with lightning speed, he was on the radio, he was in the news, had church gatherings, community gatherings, forums, crying out for justice for his father. And over time, we found out what happened because we learned that a medical alert had been triggered and it was recording the entire time that Mr. Chamberlain had interactions with the police. And so all that I'll share with you now has been documented. We learned that the father was accidentally triggered his medical alert very early in the morning, like 5:30. And when he did not respond to the person's asking, Mr. Chamberlain, are you okay? Are you okay? They called the police for a wellness check. And so Mr. Chamberlain woke up to police banging on his door and banging and banging and banging. Wake up, Mr. Chamberlain. And he looked out of the peephole and he saw White Plains police. And he said, okay, leave me alone. It was an accident. No, Mr. Chamberlain, open up the door. No, he says, I'm not going to open up the door. I understand that you came to help. There's no need for you. Please go away. And they engaged in a power struggle where the police said, you will open up this door. And Mr. Chamberlain said, I will not open up this door. Mr. Chamberlain suffered from PTSD and he started to trigger and he started to panic. And the more he said, leave me be, the more aggressive they became and the angrier they became and the more pissed off they became more and more aggressive. They called him names. They provoked him. They called him the N-word. They were banging and banging and banging on the doors. They called in more police. They had shields, tactical gears. They had guns. At one point, people from the building were coming up the steps saying, please, we know Mr. Chamberlain, let us speak to him. No, you have to leave. The police said, this is our area, get away. They begged him, please, you're making this worse. No, all of these people were pushed away. So on the recording, you can hear Mr. Chamberlain saying, officers, why do you have your guns drawn? I've done nothing. Please put them away. And the last thing we hear him say is, my name is Kenneth Chamberlain Sr. This is my last will and testimony. The White Plains police are knocking down my door and they're coming to kill me. And that's exactly what happened. They tore down his door. They tasered him. And Officer Anthony Corelli executed the final shot that killed him, standing there in his boxer shorts and his oxygen tank. Killed him. His son, Kenneth, said, I will find justice. I will not end until we find justice. Within 20 days, Kenneth Chamberlain rallied up a group of people and we started the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. And many of the people look like me, white people who are outraged. We couldn't believe what we were hearing because we could hear through, over time, we heard recordings. And he rallied a legal team that was amazing, a legal team, a press team, media coverage, his friends, everywhere he went. Kenneth Chamberlain with this legal team and the press team and his friends, these 6 men and women would walk into a room. And what I say is that it wasn't Kenneth Chamberlain. It was a concept that walked into the room. They went to court. We filled the courts. People were outside protesting. The concept that was in the room was the concept of Black dignity, Black power, Black resolve. And year after year, case after case, Officer Corelli is absolved of wrongdoing because of qualified immunity, a law that shields and protects officers from liability of civil lawsuits. And they've had numerous appeals. And right now, there's another one pending. And so it was Undoing Racism that brought me to this work, because after this happened, I mean, I know that Daniel Buford, and friends with Daniel Buford, the work that he was doing with arbitrary punishment. And he'll be talking about the codification of summary executions. But the language of human rights is so powerful that we invited Daniel to fly out from California to New York. And in March of 2016, he spent a week here, going from place to place, educating people about the need for us to understand that police killings is also a human rights violation. And at the Westpac meeting, he met with Kenneth Chamberlain. And after Daniel delivered his human rights analysis and educated us about language that we should be using, language like summary executions, extrajudicial executions, torture, unarmed men and women of African descent having these dangerous police encounters. Kenneth took on and integrated that language into the sharing of information about what had happened to his father. So we've come to understand that even though police killings are immoral, they're happening right in front of our eyes in videos. And we understand that this is wrong, that executions are happening. The most outrageous thing that we've come to understand is that it isn't necessarily illegal for police to kill Black people, and they will get away with it. And so Kenneth Chamberlain has said that after 10 years, justice looks different. We may never get this police officer who killed his father, but what we must do, he said, is to create civilian complaint boards that have subpoena power, that we have to have mental health respondents. So his father didn't need to look out of the peephole and to see a gun. He should have saw a social worker or a healthcare provider. Hold police officers accountable by doing away with these laws like qualified immunity that shield police officers, and put prosecutors in place that are not afraid to prosecute. He's created a video for us that we can take a look at now, but you need to know that he continues to organize. And Kenneth Chamberlain actually had a featured film made about the killing of his father. And it's produced in 2019. It's starring Frankie Faison, promoted by Morgan Freeman. And we hope that you'll just hold it up with the rest of the documentation that has happened, you know, the Bart killings and the others. But I just want to now just turn it over to Daniel and to ask if you can run Kenneth Chamberlain's video.
Thank you, and thank you for that statement. And I believe we have the video available to be seen now. Thank you for your statement and your work.
Yes.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Kenneth Chamberlain Jr. I am one of the co-founders of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. This coalition was founded in 2012 after the killing of my father, Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., at the hands of White Plains Police Department. So, bigger than being the co-founder of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform, I am also a family member that is impacted by police violence. But before I begin to have a conversation with you guys, I want to acknowledge Daniel Buford, who I met in March of 2016. You know, when you are fighting these types of fights, families like mine, we're lost. We really don't know what direction to turn to, where to go, what to say, what type of language to use. And you have these governments that basically read from the same playbook. But Daniel helped me understand a little bit about language when I am addressing the issue around families that are impacted by police violence. So I now use the term extrajudicial killing and summary execution, because my father was a victim of a summary execution at the hands of White Plains Police Department. On the day that he was killed, for those of you who don't know, he inadvertently triggered his Life Aid pendant that he wore around his neck. He suffered from a heart condition, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, as well as bipolar disorder. When he activated his pendant around his neck, the monitoring station did not get a response. They then contacted White Plains Police Department, who are first responders, and they arrived at my father's home at a housing project in White Plains, 135 South Lexington. They knocked on the door. My dad said he was okay. He didn't call them, but that wasn't enough for these police officers. For 90 minutes, they began to bang on his door, demanding that he open the door. And he was within his right not to, because we know that there are 3 circumstances in which police can make entry into your home. And that is with permission, with a warrant, or through exigent circumstances. And they didn't have any of those 3. So they eventually took the door off his hinges, fired an electronic taser at him, a beanbag shotgun, and then live rounds shooting and killing him, alleging that he posed an imminent threat to life or well-being. Of course, the Westchester County District Attorney at that time promised a full and fair investigation, but in May of 2012 came back with no true bill, even justifying the use of an N-word that was hurled at my father before he was killed. So this began this movement in White Plains or in Westchester County, or really this birth of the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform. And our focus is about greater police accountability and transparency, because the name of the game is accountability. Now, since that time, many different things have happened, and one in particular as of late is that there is a film called The Killing of Kenneth Chamberlain. This film is a fictional narrative based on the true events that led to my father's death. I apologize in advance for any trauma this film may cause. It is a hard watch, but it is a necessary watch. And my hope is that this film is going to force real dialogue, real conversations around policing and how we can change it. An example would be civilian complaint review boards, with subpoena power though, because they're useless without them. Putting mental health services in emergency responses, because I always say if a person is experiencing a mental health crisis, they don't want to see someone with a badge and a gun. They want to see someone who is a clinician, a mental health professional, someone who understands that their job is to diffuse a situation, not create one. We want to look at educating the community, not just on what to do if you're stopped by law enforcement, but how do you survive a law enforcement encounter? And of course, when we're talking about mental health as well, not just the mental health of individuals they encounter in the street, but the mental health of the police officer as well. Why? Because police officers only do one psych test, and that is at the beginning of the process when they are being vetted to be hired. And all of that is great. But if you do not have laws in place or remove laws that protect police officers, like qualified immunity, or actually put laws in place that are going to hold them accountable, It means absolutely nothing. You have to have prosecutors, though, who are not afraid to prosecute these officers when they commit these egregious acts. So, unfortunately, I couldn't join you guys, so I decided to do this video because I'm very, very busy promoting the film that's going to be exclusively on HBO Max on November 19th. But I just wanted to come on and just say to you guys, I appreciate you all. My family and I appreciate you. Thank you for standing in solidarity with us, because without you guys, we couldn't stand as strong as we're standing. And I just want to say, may there be accountability for Kenneth Chamberlain Sr., and may there be accountability for all families that are impacted by police violence. Thank you.